So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews. We'll discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Phillippa Banister, who's founder and director at Street Space. So, Phillippa, firstly, thank you for spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Street Space, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yes, hello everyone. My name's Phillippa Banister, and as Chris says, I'm the director of Street Space, and we're a social enterprise, and we work with people to reimagine their streets and spaces to make them feel safe, bring joy, and social connection. And so, what that really looks like is we're a community engagement and collaborative design creative practice. So, we're really passionate about working with communities often in between communities and councils and trying to kind of like look at that translation, look at the kind of how do we turn policy into real life? How can we actually have a dialogue between communities, people, and councils who govern them? How can we inspire people to kind of take ownership of their
Mm.
streets and spaces, to use them in ways that make sense for their community, to kind of bring nature and play more to their doorstep, and really sort of supporting people to kind of flex their civic muscle, I guess, is
Yes.
something is the way we like to describe it, and empower people to kind of use the space, the public space that we have, to bring people together, to support each other, and kind of provide more opportunities for people to be able to choose to walk, to cycle, and for children to play and create more livable places and neighborhoods where we feel that we can all belong together.
Love
So
it.
yeah, sounds very utopian.
It sounds great. It really does. I mean, it just makes me think, of streets where I've lived where we might know one or two people and we're quite friendly, but we never, I don't think, consider ourselves a community in that way. But it feels like
Mm.
you'll build communities around where people live in that street. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I can talk a bit more about how we work, but generally we are commissioned to work in specific areas,
Yep.
in specific spaces, and kind of really listen then to communities on the ground to kind of see what is meaningful for them, what ways do they want to kind of take
Yeah.
action under some of the missions that we've described. And it can look like very different things in different places. But yeah, we're really passionate about listening first and supporting people to kind of see public space as theirs and
Yes.
something that can change, doesn't have to just be the space that we put our cars and then
Yeah.
don't think about again.
Yeah, but brilliant. It's making me think very broadly. It's wonderful. So, Philippa, maybe if we start by looking back a little bit, and you could tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had like a very much a non-linear path. And I always love to hear from, when I'm talking to young people or people that kind of say they haven't found their thing. And I'm like, that's great. Like that means that it's kind of still in the discovery mode for you. Because I definitely felt lost for a number of years when actually really I was just kind of on the journey towards figuring out what it is that really like brought my passions together.
Yes.
I actually did a degree in drama and English a long time ago at uni. And at the time, that was because I love people, I love stories, and yeah, and I also just enjoyed those subjects. So I kind of did that, and then wanted to create a I kind of, I guess it's a bit, I just sometimes describe it as a bit like a sort of like I created my own like national service sort of placements because I did a year of kind of care work in a hospital as a care support worker, and I also worked for a homeless charity in Bradford. And really just because again I was trying to like figure out like
Yes.
what is it that which direction do I want to go in. I love people, but yeah, I was just kind of wanting to kind of get some more real life experience in different
Yes.
sectors. And I did a sustainability master's, and I also worked for a year in Cameroon in West Africa and a year in Sri Lanka, which have informed like my kind of thinking
Yeah.
and understanding of communities and sort of challenge my way of seeing the world, which I think is like so important. And obviously you don't need to go to travel to do that. And we can do that on our streets with our neighbors who don't necessarily think the same as us. But I think that's one thing that kind of I'd really like encourage other people to go out and do, and kind of like sit in the mess, I guess, of between people's different perspectives, and
Yes.
kind of really see that as a positive.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so kind of did lots of different things, but then really found in Cameroon, I was working again, as I said, like sort of in between community organizations and community groups and the council, and trying to kind of build a dialogue, build kind of ways of connecting, and kind of exploring how to kind of channel understanding between the two so that can understand different perspectives and sort
Yes.
of translation, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I was back in London, I was like really trying to find that I felt like that role didn't necessarily exist in
Yep.
this country, and I was like, where can I find something that's like meets this kind of connection bridging role, if you like. And then I got a job working for Sustrans, which is a charity. They've now just rebranded to the Walk, Wheel and Cycle Trust. But
Right.
yeah, they're all about sustainable transport, and they
Yep.
I got started working on a project in Barking and Dagenham in one neighbourhood, looking at how could the streets be designed to foster more connection and sort of support people to kind of do short trips by walking or on bikes instead of hopping into the car. And
Yeah.
obviously, kind of design of our neighbourhoods is a key a determining factor as to whether people can choose those things, right? Whether it's safe, whether there's space, whether other people are doing it,
Yes.
and yeah, and so really got fascinated in kind of like spatial design, urban design. How can the design of streets change behavior and also kind of build community? And I guess also like bringing that community development work that I'd done previously in those different sectors and countries, and kind of seeing another layer of like what's possible when the landscape has changed, I guess, on a kind of street by street level. And so after that, I set up Street Space in 2018, I
Yep.
think. And so yeah, and really kind of wanted to kind of bring ideas to life again, kind of working to listen to community members on at the grassroots on the ground, and sort of also exploring, testing ideas, bringing ideas to life on and sort of lots of things around space, play, safety, perceptions of safety. And then in 2020, moved my organization to Bradford, which I might talk about later, but it was a hugely challenging thing to do, move a business.
Yes.
Something that I hadn't necessarily thought was maybe going to be as challenging as it was. Um, but yeah, and I've had two children in the last 4 years as well. So
Goodness.
also kind of unleashing how to think even about being a present and active mother whilst running a business is a whole thing.
Goodness. Well, I was going to ask you what the biggest challenge you've had, but there's a few right there, aren't there? What would you say? I mean, I guess COVID must have had some impact on where you are, but what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome over this last sort of 8 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of challenges. I think, I mean, COVID, to be honest, all our projects, we just found ways to do them remotely. So we were working on like,
Brilliant.
um, kind of looking at a new, like basically participating, supporting community members to participate in shaping a new co-working center in Bruce Grove in Tottenham, and kind of how could we and we had young producers who were in those communities working with us to kind of do Instagram lives, gather feedback in online, do different things like socially distance, like walk and talks and stuff. So there was, and we even had people growing plants and seeds so that then they could kind of then when the building
Oh
was
wow,
complete, they could like be adopted by the building.
brilliant.
Um, yeah, so yeah, as everyone else, kind of navigating and flexing to kind of explore different ways of doing engagement and community work. Um, but yeah, I guess like slowly starting to value like my skills and ways of
Yes.
thinking. So I think as an in-betweener, I've often struggled to like fit in any box. And I think that might be a common thing between like other people that also start their own things, sort of not really feeling like you fit in anywhere or
Yes.
in sort of, I'm not I don't just want to be doing community development, but and I don't just want to be doing urban design, and I don't just want to kind of be writing policy. I want to be like bringing all those things together, and doing things in a slightly different way. And I think it's taken me a long time to value that as
Yeah.
in myself and kind of value how I see the world and kind of my place at the table, I guess, and sort of valuing my skills, connecting with people and kind of amplifying their experiences to kind of policymakers, if you like, because often, those are things that aren't valued
Yeah.
in sort of capitalism, and kind of being able to connect with people and listen, which is like
Yes.
the majority of what we do. Um, you know, but at quite a wide sort of community scale,
Yes.
is not something that like generally people think is that important, and people are often ignored,
Yeah.
and decisions are made and they're not included, and we're sort of trying to fight that and trying to
Yeah.
break into that cycle so that we can really support people to shape policies and places in ways that mean something to them.
Yes.
But yeah, moving street space was a huge challenge, mainly because of the relationships that I had with like different councils that we were working with in
Yeah.
London. And I'd worked in Barking Dagenham about 10 years prior to setting
Right.
up street space.
Yeah.
And obviously my work is really place based. And so kind of
Yes.
setting up in Bradford and West Yorkshire, obviously there's just like a whole nother, like however many people working in relevant sectors, kind of building relationships with them and kind of really understanding the difference in the landscape,
Yeah.
and the difference in kind of councils, um, yeah, like where councils are at in terms of kind of really trying to let go of power, and support communities to shape spaces and places. And that's, there's a sort of quite a large spectrum of where people are at on that and kind of how much um, they're willing to let go
Yeah.
of that sort of power.
It must.
Um,
It feels like it must have been almost like starting again because if what you're doing is based around a community and you're completely moving communities, I would imagine it's like, okay, who do I speak to about this, and who's the person that does that? It must be
yeah,
quite
yeah.
a project.
Yeah, and I think I possibly, even though I'm from this area, so I did grow up in the district and then moved away, I think I fell into the trap of thinking, oh, well, we've done all these really cool projects in London, and so, you know, won't that mean that people like might want to work with us here?
Right, right,
Uh,
yeah,
and and it was, yeah, it's kind of interesting because yeah, I think it's a complex one that could go on for, yeah, maybe a side conversation, but there's like multiple levels of kind of yeah, just nuance, I guess, when it comes to that and kind of what people value and kind of local procurement versus as like, sort of how people view outsiders or not.
yeah, yeah. No, I can imagine.
Yeah,
That
although
must
it's
be.
weird because I do remember going back to see some friends who'd when I'd just started in Bradford and they were being commissioned in London to do something in Bradford, and I was like, what?
Oh
So yeah,
goodness, yeah,
so kind
that's
of like
nuts.
a real flip of like, um, you know, yeah, who's perceived as having value to offer. And I
Yeah,
think it's like a quite a long conversation about that maybe not being, well, obviously different in everyone's perspectives, but yeah, quite a complex conversation.
absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how challenging that must have been. And whether it's from the challenges or the successes you had, what are your biggest learnings about growing a successful organization?
Um, I think, um, I mean, I think you kind of have to define success by what it means to you,
Yeah,
and that's no one else's kind of like measure of what success might be. um
agreed.
I think I think there's something in kind of giving yourself power, so because no one else is going to, right?
Yeah,
And I think we've experienced that like many times of kind of we want to do something, we've got community support, but potentially the landlord or the landowner, you know, is not yet part of that conversation, but sort of often sometimes kind of going in really confidently and being like, people don't feel safe on this alleyway, so we want to do this. We've co-created this with young people and old people, and this they all everyone's up for it, and we've got the money to do it. And so I know you're the landowner, but we're going to do it on this day, and sort of almost like
right, brilliant. Oh
like
wow,
and it's worked,
yeah, brilliant,
and kind
wonderful.
of with a social purpose, obviously, not just
I
not for
know,
just my
I
own
really get
ends,
it.
but
It's brilliant.
yeah. And I think asking for forgiveness, if
It's
instead
easy.
of permission, because
Yes.
I think that's, and that can be applied to everything, right? Not just spaces,
Yeah,
but I think that so often we've become, broadly, I'd say even like as a society, like we've sort of like, you know, we've kind of, I don't know whether it's in asset-based community development, there's a sort of critique around like professionalization of care, professionalization of like all these things that used to be more community like things, right, that we do for each other, that we like put the salt out when it's icy, we get the ice off our little bit. And nowadays we all just sit around being like, well, why hasn't the council done that?
yeah,
And I think we sort of we're waiting for permission in many
yeah,
things, in many aspects, because also we've been told off, right? Like, and
yeah,
for all sorts of things. And obviously there is, I say this with caution around safeguarding, around, lots of things that we've learned around that are really important and need to stay. But I think there is also a relearning that needs to happen around like seeing something that needs to happen, and kind of giving yourself permission
yeah.
to take action. And I spend a lot of time trying to get into that space myself, and kind of we've signed a whole network of snickets in Frizinghall, Bradford, with playful signs, and got them manufactured, and we sort of contacted the council being like, oh, so can you help us like install these? And it is their land really. but,
Yes.
but yeah, yeah, but we are
Great.
working in partnership with local people, so I think
Yeah,
that's it probably sounds really bullshit, but we are
that
we
sounds
are
brilliant.
like trying to kind of support people to take power,
Yeah,
real power, when it comes to kind of their neighborhood and how people move around, and supporting people to do that in a way that is more sustainable and more socially just, and can help us all to move towards a more thriving and just society.
love it. I love it, and I think it's that sort of spark of, well, why not? That's how innovation happens. People say, well, what,
Yeah, and
can
I
we?
think
Why can't
I
we?
yeah, and I think also remembering, and I try and use this in meetings a lot, is like, what will happen if we don't do this?
Yeah,
Because like so often, like, we're looking at the air quality, people's health, um, like lack of connection, loneliness, crises
yes,
across the board, and actually the status quo isn't working.
yeah,
So we need to disrupt, and we need to kind of have like quite a radical and playful approach to kind of
yeah.
changing things. And I hope that when we're working in partnership with councils, we really support them to like to take measured risks, right? To take risks and to do things a bit differently, in order to kind of see what might happen, and see if we can kind of bring changes to any of those really tricky problems.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Philip, I think you might be aware we were a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Um, oh, I did work. I have a mentor actually, and she is really inspiring person to me, and I did actually work for her sort of
Brilliant.
way back, yeah, like quite early on in my career. And I think one of my things is that you can't be what you can't see. And she set up a business straight after university with a like strong social purpose, but also kind of like design thinking at its heart. And just like totally blew my mind. Like when I was working for her, I was like, wow, these guys just like set up a company like two friends. And yeah, and it was really inspiring to be a part of that. And I think we work with a lot of young people who we pay to kind of connect us in their neighborhood, and and we always we sometimes think that metrics like success should be measured in the number of first invoices that we pay, and it's a lot because we support a lot of young people, so usually between the ages of 18 and 25, to work with us. And and we're not interested in what qualifications or skill, not academic skills and
Yes.
qualifications they
Yeah.
have, but we're interested in how they relate to people and
Yep.
how they can tell a story and how they connect and build relationships. And that's really what we do. And so it doesn't matter to us if someone has one A level or none.
Great.
Um, so yeah.
Brilliant, and I think that's great to hear. I think I won't go off on one, but I think the education system works for a percentage of the population, but it doesn't work for another percentage of the population too. And I won't go into the size of those percentages, but there's so many different ways, and whether you've been to college or not, it's a mark of it's not a mark of how well you can contribute or how well you can be of value to others, and it's just a mechanism, I think.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
totally get that. Brilliant. Well, and whether it's from mentors or anyone else, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about life or business or success that you can share?
Mm. Yeah, and one I love and that I do try and like share with people that I meet, because I think it's really powerful to start by starting. Because like it sounds simple, but most people don't start. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think it's really helpful. And again, it helps people push past all those like fears and worries. And we often call our projects pilots. And I think again, it's a similar thing of like we're trying something new. Like it might not work, but we're going to
Yep.
learn even if it doesn't. And so we're just going to start. And often our work can be the simplest the simplest act of kind of popping up somewhere outside a station and asking people what they think about this, that, and everything, or whether they, and some people would be like horrified and be like, are you a fundraiser? Are you one of those people that stop people on the street? It's like, but actually people
Brilliant.
love to talk, like, and obviously
Yeah.
if they don't, that's fine. But we really like we just we go out and we talk and we ask and we listen, and I think
Brilliant.
people have a lot to say. I think the other thing is growing is meant to feel uncomfortable. I think
Yep.
it's a bit like lobsters and kind of growing out of the shell, and it's like not necessarily. I think there's a good video about it that I could link to, but yeah, I think yeah, remembering that sometimes can make the painful moments feel
Yes.
worthwhile.
Yeah, I remember the CEO of my organisation many years ago, and he said he was at an event, and he said, "Look, but the job of a business owner, a business leader, is to solve problems, and so if you don't like problems, probably running a business or an organisation isn't for you.
Mm,
And but to add to that, what I've come to believe over time is growth causes problems. So if we're not, if we don't have any problems, it's probably because we're not growing as fast as we probably could. And so
mm,
for me, it helps me engage with the idea of, yeah, this is great. It is, and they call growing pains for a reason. The growing is painful, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah,
Um, as
yeah.
long as, yeah, I was going to say not too fast, but that's a different story. Uh, and so, Philippa, on the learning front, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far?
Um, I think that you can't please everyone. That's been like I think for a lot, most people. I mean, I don't know if I really want to say most women. I think it's across like genders, really, but um. like to please people. It's a
Yeah.
nice, and I think it's quite difficult to sort of step into that growth space, I guess, can be quite painful where you realize that you can't please everyone. And I've worked on lots of really complex schemes. I don't know if you've heard about kind of low traffic neighborhoods that become a kind of a culture war. It's more in London, but a little
Right.
bit up here as well. And highly controversial. And but but also for kind of good reason, right? For reducing accidents, for
Yeah.
making safer space for children, and better access to nature, and I think change is really difficult, and even if communities have had like lots and lots of space and time to kind of sort of take part in change making and sort of shaping the schemes, it can not necessarily reach everyone, and some people will feel they're being done too, even though the processes that we work on are always kind of about doing with, and was really difficult learning, that actually you might have done something and it is successful, but there's people hate you. And not everyone, but there's like and I've, like many other people working in this area, have received like horrible messages
Oh
and
goodness.
letters, and from this kind of reaction basically to kind of change, and there being a sort of lack of trust across the system. So not necessarily about me or about kind of what even I've been doing, but sort of like this wider systems at play, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was kind of quite a important lesson, I think, that I've learned about myself. Um, I think sometimes going slow is like, again, I tend to kind of want to go about 10 million miles an hour. And and that isn't always kind of, I think I've like over the last couple of years kind of tried to think about like, is this in my gift to do, or do I need help with this? Who can do this best? Who can support me to do this? And kind of um yeah, working a bit more collaboratively rather than like holding everything.
Yeah.
And I think I guess, like, again, kind of just always thinking about what's strong, not wrong. So whether that's in the communities that we're working, but also with the people that we're working with, and trying to really, yeah, live that kind of methodology, I guess, and kind of really cutting through some of the complexity to sort of like really support people to take action and on the ground, and kind of also bringing ideas to life.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, human condition, natural. We all have a certain resistance to change. Going back to your point about change, some way more than others, and lot. But there is a lot of people that will just naturally not like change.
Mm,
However good it might, whatever the change is, and I'm sure it can be, especially in your case, quite soul destroying when you're just trying to make things better. That,
mm,
but people don't value it. But I think the other one, go back to your point about urgency, is there's a great phrase that I love, which is slow down to speed up.
mm,
And sometimes
yeah.
it is take the step back. What is the most effective way of doing this? But the challenge that in many ways is most of us are taught quite rightly in many ways that the harder we work, the more successful we become. However we define success, and it's sort of okay. But once we have an organisation or a team, it's not. It should be less about how hard I work individually, but how hard I can create a team to work. And I
Yeah.
think that's a key message for leadership is. But as I say, it is really quite pushed into us at an early stage. It's all about our hard work, and it's true to a certain levels. But it's being able to make that change and be able to take a step back and say, well, actually, these people can help me get there quicker, faster,
Yeah.
smoother. Um,
Yeah, and of course, in the subjects that we're talking about in terms of like communities kind of transforming spaces, then actually it's it's not, yes, like I could go and get my mates to come and like clean up a spot, and like and then it all looks great for the photo, and we put some lights up and it's all good, but that's not real. And that's because it's got to be about actually kind of people also going on their own journey at their
yeah.
pace, and kind
Yes.
of So that is, yeah, that's another kind of complexity, I guess, around like it's not just about getting things done in our work. I guess it's quite an interesting one of we're actually like, yeah, we're in this enabling space.
Yep.
And so kind of really trying to understand and support people to like, you know, do things themselves and what are the best ways we can support them in that and take away some of the barriers. Yeah, a bit like
Yes.
coaching really, but on like a sort of community scale.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to say that, for me, coaching is all about questions. You said it's about listening, and that's
Mm,
absolutely what coaching is helping people find their way forward,
mm,
and that, and helping people change, for the
yeah,
better. But that's all
yeah.
not always that easy. So yeah, no, I absolutely. As we're talking, I'm picking up lots of lots of analogies. And so, looking forward, then, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any, Philippa?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've got lots of interesting projects at the moment in West Yorkshire. So we're on sort of often relating to nature and mental health and greening. And we're also kind of working on with some town councils in North Yorkshire, looking at their high streets and kind of how can what are the, sort of engaging and listening to like the community's views about what could animate the high street, make it
Yep,
more popular, increase dwell times. So sort of listening and then also kind of bringing some of those ideas to life with people
yep,
and seeing what works, what sticks in terms of kind of, obviously the death of the high street's like a very current topic, but actually people in these places are the ones that can save them and kind of we're a bit like a sort of catalyst, I guess, for kind
yep.
of supporting those people to kind of have those ideas and b supporting them to kind of bring them to life. So yeah, working on lots of interesting stuff and yeah, I guess challenges are doing the work whilst also kind of thinking ahead to kind of what's coming next because
Yes.
um probably like to kind of maybe apply for some more grants to do some work that we see is really necessary and yet but we're busy doing other work that means that then we can't apply for money to do that work over there, so and then also kind of balancing all that alongside raising small children
Goodness.
is just yeah, it's kind of yeah, uh, a juggle which many people say but is real. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. No, it's I work with one or two well, more than one or two female entrepreneurs, but one or two that have young children, and it's just I'm absolutely amazed how we they're running a business and running a family,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah. So it's
Yeah, and it was. I remember, like, literally, I was in labor when I was tr posting my extra evidence off to HMRC about my statutory maternity pay. That, of course, I was like, I don't have an admin person. I do
yes,
all that as well, So, and it was a bit like, what is, and then, oh, yeah. Anyway, I won't go into it, but yeah, and like the bank not being able to, no, when I couldn't actually authorize anyone else to do bank transactions unless they were a director of the company. And I'm think like, and it's like, what? So, just so I can have a break and actually raise my child, I need to change, who's the director on the company, which I didn't. I just ended up doing the bank transactions anyway,
it's
once my baby was on me.
yes. I can imagine baby in one hand and
Yeah.
yeah, the laptop in the other. Brilliant. And final question, Philippa. What would be the best advice? You touched on this right at the start, but what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
I guess I'd say trust yourself. Like try and be like less scared. You don't need to go so fast. Kind of, yeah, trust yourself, like, and also see what gives you energy.
Yeah,
So like for me, kind of building relationships, connecting with people, but I just didn't think I could ever make that a job. But I think that there's no I just didn't know that that could exist, but
yeah,
it's because I needed to create that opportunity to do that.
yeah,
So I think kind of go out into the world and listen and see and sit and connect with other people and different perspectives, and kind of soak it all up and you know, there's not so much of a rush maybe as that
Yeah.
one might perceive at the time.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Just yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Sound advice for anybody. Um, and Philippa, it's been delightful talking to you and really fascinating, especially in the things that you're doing. And for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you or Street Space, what's the best way of doing that?
Probably through our website. So our website is wearestreetspace.org. And if you go there, or even if you search in Google street space or LinkedIn, Phillippa Banister, yeah, happy to connect. And yeah, especially if you're in West Yorkshire, because that's where we are, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months and just talk more about the things that you're doing. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.